Hi, Mackenzie.
Hey, Lemar.
So, you know that I'm a big horror movie fan,
I do indeed.
and of all the scary movies that I've ever seen, I Know What You Did Last Summer is definitely one of them.
It
And
is.
what I really like about it is that it doesn't overcomplicate things. Each of the four main characters has one personality trait, and they sort
Yep.
of just retain that throughout the entire film. It's very easy to follow for that purpose.
hmm
So, my cold open question for you is, if this scenario happens, you hit somebody by accident, you weren't exactly doing anything wrong, but it's a complex scenario. You're in the shoes of these four characters. Which
Right.
of those four personalities are you taking on? Are you the sort of logical Freddie Prinze Jr. Wait, let's think for a minute. Like let's think this through. Are you the Jennifer Love Hewitt who's like, we have to go to the cops, we committed a crime, or Sarah Michelle Gellar who's kind of withdrawn and just like, I don't know what to do? Or are
Freaking out.
you fucking Ryan Phillippe who's ready to murder another person? He's got
Yeah.
bloodlust to stop this crime from coming out. Which
Who
one are
knew
you?
this was going to trigger in him like an extra layer of
Yeah,
murder?
turns out he just loves killing
He
people.
just is super into killing. Well, I'm gonna have to eliminate that one out of the gate. I'm not
Okay.
like super into the kill vibes for sure. I don't think
Yeah.
that would instigate that in me at all. I have 2 points to make here. I would say I think it would depend if it's these exact circumstance. I'm definitely the like call the cops person. I think
Okay.
we overcomplicate matters by being like, if I do this and I try to explain or I cover this up, then it'll be better. I just call the cops, get a good lawyer, don't be an idiot. But if it's like situational, like a friend had a thing with this person, and maybe we don't like this, or like you
Mm.
could maybe convince me to hide a
Oh, so
body,
you're
like
yeah.
depending on the
If it's somebody
circumstances.
we don't like, it's okay to
Right.
commit murder. Yes.
No, I mean,
Okay.
like, I don't want to do the murder, but could you call me to create a speed bump that wasn't there before? Perhaps.
You're giving
Perhaps.
me flashbacks of that. Did you watch The Jinx? That Robert Durst, was it Robert
Yes, I
Durst?
did.
That
And I
guy.
listened
That's
to the
you're giving me
podcast.
flashbacks of all his friends, like his enablers, that are like, "Look, dude, I know you probably killed them, but it's cool. I like you, so it's okay."
Well, they wanted money. I would do it pro bono, is what I'm saying, just for
What a
love
friend.
purposes.
What a
Yeah, yeah.
friend.
What a friend. Okay, wait. So I'm going to go, you're not Ryan Phillippe in this situation, but who would your
As
person
much
be?
as the Ryan Phillippe, it takes a lot of balls to kind of choke, like not full on strangle, but to choke a man's girlfriend in front of
Oh my
him, and
God. I
Freddie
know,
Prinze
right?
Jr. just kind of stands there and watches
Just
it
sits
happen,
there.
which is
That's in my notes. Yep.
but so not going to go with Ryan Phillippe. I think I'd be the Freddie Prinze here. I know he doesn't have a lot going on upstairs in this film, but
Mm-mm,
I think
mm-mm.
logic of there's all these different reasons why they can't go to the cops, because even though he's sober, he's covered in alcohol. It's Ryan Phillippe's car, so the cops aren't going to
Mm.
believe them. Spoiler, folks, we're not having a no spoiler zone today because I'm just ruining the beginning of
I
this
was
movie
gonna
for
say
you.
in the cold
But
open we fucked it already, so
no
we're good.
less. But he's thinking about all these variables, and it's kind of like in new movies where they always have
Yeah.
to explain why cell phones don't work in a horror movie, because otherwise you
Mm-hmm.
just call the cops. That's what this feels like, and I think it does a pretty good job of covering up its tracks. But I'd be that Freddie Prinze Jr. Like, logically, can we get out of this, or do we have to hide the body?
Yeah. Okay. So I think you're middle of the road. I
Yeah.
have, two personas like call the cops or depends on the homie. And you're like, I'm gonna ride the line. It's very situational. I think it's kind of the same thing, to be honest. We gotta analyze the situation.
Yeah, and I'm super logical out there too. So if anybody out there wants to like pay me to, they can watch me choke their girlfriend, with consent. If that's a thing, I'm open. So we'll just leave it at that.
Oh, this took a turn. So let's get into it, shall we? Welcome back to We Drink and We Watch Things. I'm Mackenzie.
I'm Lamar.
And we are finishing up our month of summer fun with a summer horror flick that we felt like we hadn't quite captured that representation yet. So we threw in I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Which is a summer film for sure. Whether it's
Yeah.
fun or not, TBD.
We will discuss.
Yeah.
We'll definitely get there.
Yeah.
But before we do, we're going to need a lot of liquor to do that. So what are we drinking today?
Well, it's very fitting. Yes, we did need a lot of booze. And so Skylar whipped up this concoction of, it's a lot of fucking liquor. I'm looking down at this. 2 ounces.
I don't even know what he
what?
did.
I'm not even going to go through this entire recipe. It's complicated. You would need to go out and buy 4 bottles in order to make it. But it's basically just a Pim's Cup mixed with a shit ton of other stuff and some strawberry puree and palm juice. And because of how hammered we're going to be in 60 minutes, we're going to call this I Forget What You Did Last Summer, I think.
I forgot what you did last summer.
Forgot
yes.
what you did last summer.
Yeah. We've already had a couple drinks, if that wasn't clear. No, yeah, I will asterisk this that mine is slightly different than Lamar's because we have slightly different supplies, but it is the same name and it is the same general concept, but the colors are slightly different. So I'm going to show you mine and you show me yours on the count of 3. Okay.
Okay. I haven't done this since I was like 15 years old. Let's do it.
Yikes. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, so yours is like pretty green.
Okay, but the camera's I wish it could capture it. It's making it read green. It's really not. It's like a grayish, murky water vibe, which is what he was going for with where they dump the body kind of water.
Like that opening shot of like that greenish blue on the cliffside there.
Yeah,
okay.
and it's
yeah,
like
mine came out super red. I don't know if it's the strawberry puree or what.
I think it's your strawberry puree kind of stole the show a little. Yeah. So, anywho's, okay, well, cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah, and I don't have strawberry puree, so that's why we did that.
I'll do it.
Okay, so in case you couldn't tell, guys, this is gonna be a fun one. We have some feelings, so let's dig right in.
Yeah, it's gonna. Before we jump in, I want to say we are gonna have a lot of feelings here today. I want to dedicate this episode to my sister Jordan, who I didn't even know was listening to the podcast, but she told me the sweetest thing this morning, which is that she just had a daughter about a month ago. And so she told me that she listens to our pod when she wakes up in the middle of the night to feed the baby. And she's just listening in chunks. And we're sort of like what calms her and soothes her with all the anxieties of having the baby and whatnot. So that
is the most precious thing. Oh my God, Jordan. Hi, Jordan. Thank you for listening. We love that.
Yeah, it's very touching and sweet. And in addition to that, like how much I love my sister, it's also a good opportunity for you parents out there to get your kids started early with us. Yeah. So just like Wu-Tang, we drink and we watch things. It's for the children. That's who we're really doing it for. So.
Yeah. We're indoctrinating them early into drinking and watching things. It's our whole shtick. Now, if only my sister would listen. Avery, looking at you.
Well, she can't hear this, so...
Clearly not. I'm going to send her just that snippet, though.
We'll make her feel bad. This week.
Yeah, that's the real. Avery, you're not listening. Ugh. Okay, well, as we said, we're doing I Know What You Did Last Summer, which came out in 1997. It feels very 1997, so that is very on brand. I think it contributes to the story here and there, which I will touch on as we go through, but it's like the 97 of it all is definitely coming through.
We're going to get to that laptop and the internet search for sure. Yeah.
Yes, we are. The IMDb rating is 5.8 out of 10. Which I would say is
pretty accurate.
Pretty accurate, yeah. And then we've also got the Rotten Tomatoes, which is 46% critics and 41% audience, which is the aggregate, like how it has grown. Yeah. That is a current live rating. So it's like it gets worse.
You said 41 for both?
46 for critics, 41 for audience.
That's rare for horror films. Usually I feel the audience skews higher. So it's strange to me.
I was surprised as well. Yeah. Yes. I think also too, I was surprised because we'll jump ahead for a quick sec. This made buku bucks at the box office. Yeah. It was a $17 million budget and it made 125 plus million at the box office. So
it's very interesting because we've talked about Scream, which came out in 96 on this podcast before. And a lot of people say, oh, Scream sort of revamped the genre. Mm-hmm. And when people say that, I always wonder specifically what good films they're talking about, because you kind of have this, I enjoy The Faculty, Robert Rodriguez, which is a fun one.
I like The Faculty,
silly, but maybe Urban Legend. And then there's this one. But aside from that, I mean, Scream is awesome, and I love the Scream series as a whole, but this one stands out as sort of people, I think, nostalgia glasses on this one of, oh, it's got this great cast of like beautiful people. But honestly, the movie, if you haven't watched it recently, is just not that fun to watch.
I will say, I kind of generally agree. I don't think it's that great of a watch. I have not seen it in a long time, so I was kind of not prepared for how. I also had this mentality of like, it's probably cheesy, but it's a good cast, and I'm sure it's fine, like a fun Scream-esque slasher flick. But it is a very bare bones basic slasher flick, but it's not as intriguing or interesting as Scream. And it's interesting because the writer is the same guy.
Kevin Williamson, yeah.
Yeah, Kevin Williamson is the same guy. But he did specifically speak to how he switched gears for this versus Scream. Like when he adapted this content, the novel that it's based on was actually better and more like complex. And he felt like it needed to just be simplified for audiences and be more of like a very classic slasher flick. And I don't think it does it much justice, to be honest. It's not great.
Yeah, it's walking this weird line between, it's trying to be Wes Craven, right? Like Scream and Nightmare on Elm Street and all these classics, but it's also more, but it's more Agatha Christie. It feels more like a mystery of
But
who
it's
is
not even
doing
doing
this.
that well.
I know, but
know?
it's trying to do both,
Yeah.
and it doesn't do either great. And we'll get more into that, I'm sure.
Yeah, so let's dig into a couple things on to that point. It was directed by Jim Gillespie, who has a very specific style, which I don't think is like a great style personally.
What would you say is his style? Because when I looked at his IMDb, I thought his style was, I make a kind of bad movie every 7 years or so. That's
exactly. That's
doesn't get that many
exactly what I mean.
opportunities.
I just mean he contributed to this situation that we're in, is what I'm saying. Because he did Joyride, he did Takedown, he did a bunch of like cheesy, crappy.
But he didn't
flicks.
do the horror Joyride. Because when I saw that, I thought it was the one with Steve Zahn, Paul Walker, which I enjoyed. It's not, again, not perfect, but as a horror fan, I like that one. It's not that one. And I will say, he has some good shots in here. He's a good, as far as cinematography goes and actually shooting things. I think he does a solid job there, but the film as
let's
whole
credit
is
his DP,
super
shall we?
Yeah. Do you have that name handy?
I don't actually. I'm pulling it up, but yeah,
we'll get them footnoted at the end of the episode.
I was gonna say we'll get him shot. Dennis Crosnan. I did see it. Dennis Crosnan.
Well, Dennis, you did a good job.
Dennis did do a good job. Jim Gillespie is not my guy. I just feel like I don't love his stuff. And I think it contributes to the change in how they adapted this, is what I'm saying. Kevin Williamson kind of shifted gears when adapting this, and it shows. And the novel itself, the Lois Duncan source material, I think is more of an Agatha Christie vibe, which is why
it is. There's like no deaths at all. I mean, well, that's not super Agatha Christie, but that's kind of like young adult mystery novel of no one dies. We're just trying to figure out who the murderer is, kind of.
Yeah, totally. And so I think that's a more interesting way to go, actually. I will say, I think like they upend a couple of things that you think could happen, but overall it's very predictable, So anyway, okay.
Well, really quick before we skip forward though, the last thing I want to say about that, because you've pointed it out a couple times, is the difference between this and the Scream script, right? Because that's the one that made Kevin Williamson. And this script, apparently he had finished this years before he wrote Scream. He had read the novel, said, oh, that's a good opportunity to make that into a film, shopped it around, could not get a buyer. No one wanted to make this script. And then as soon as Scream dropped, everyone was on his dick. And they were like, let's make anything he writes. So they put this out. So all the critics and viewers like myself at that time, and I don't know if you saw these when they came out, but I was like, oh, that wasn't as good as Scream. That's weird. Everyone thought he had declined in quality when really it was just a script that he'd had sitting around for 5 years that didn't get greenlit.
I do think he rewrote it a little though, because I think that was I think that's what he was saying in that interview that I had read, where he knew that Scream had just happened and he didn't want to make it the exact same movie. And there are a couple Scream-esque moments, but on the whole, it does not have the same vibe. No,
it's definitely
really doesn't.
Scream is just more fun, and that, at the end of the day, horror films, there are some that are super highbrow where it's like, oh, this had some emotional impact. But for the most part, it's like, if I want to watch a horror, I want to have a good time. And that's why I watch Scream every year. It's just a fun movie to watch. This one is kind of a slog.
Okay, but sidebar, what is one that you feel changed by?
I would say maybe not emotionally impacted. Maybe I picked the wrong words. Yeah. I'm thinking like ones that carry emotional weight, like The Exorcist, where you're watching this poor girl go through all these medical trials and then it turns out she's possessed and then it becomes scarier. Or the more contemporary sort of what's the word that they use in Scream? Elevated horror.
Elevated
horror.
The
Babadook and Hereditary, where it's, we're taking these real life, or what's the STD one? It Follows. That kind of stuff where you're relating it to more real life things that we can relate to in some way, but putting it way over the top silliness for horror.
I like that term elevated horror, actually. I think that's an interesting way to
You and
play
Jenna
it.
Ortega both in Scream 5, whichever one that, I think it was Scream 5.
Well, I will just say that of the horror movies, those are the ones that I like. Are
Yeah, because
the
you love the
elevated.
Babadook. Yeah.
I love the Babadook. I like the ones that fuck with your brain a little bit. You know, that's my shtick. Anyway, we're going on a whole other tangent. I apologize, guys.
I'm fine with it.
Well, we don't love this movie. So yeah, we want to talk about anything else basically, but let's blow through this cast and get it over with. So major cast and crew is again, a bunch of beautiful 90s people.
Yeah.
Jennifer Love Hewitt, who we know, of course, from Can't Hardly Wait. She then also did Heartbreakers, which is weirdly the first thing I may think of for her. Every time I hear her name, that's the first thing I think of, which I don't know how many people even saw that
It's
movie.
in the top 3 for me, and here's why. First off, huge crush on JLH, obviously, like every other
man
guy, I think.
ever. Yeah.
But so I had seen Can't Hardly Wait. I had seen this. I'd seen a couple episodes of Party of Five. But when I went to college, freshman year, the roommate I had for the last only like 2 months or so of that semester, I had a gay roommate, and his boyfriend would come over every night. And the two of them fucking loved Heartbreakers. That was their favorite movie. And so every night for 2 months, I would fall asleep watching Heartbreakers with Jennifer Love Hewitt.
I also had a weird Heartbreaker shtick for a minute. And I think it was because I didn't have cable at that time, but I was also religiously watching people's children for money. I was nannying all the time. So there was a lot of like shitty cable late hours kind of thing.
Mhm.
And that movie was always on. And I could also watch it and kind of have a good time. Like it wasn't a hard watch. And Gene Hackman's in it, which is always a good thing. So
Gene Hackman, Ray Liotta. Let's just do an episode on Heartbreakers.
Yeah, let's switch gears.
What we're doing.
We both know this one really
Sigourney
well.
Weaver, another horror icon in there. Come on.
And it's a whole con thing. Like we love the long con. Anyway, okay, yeah. Heartbreakers is don't sleep on it. It's a good one, guys.
Now, did you see who could have been in this role? Who they offered this to first before JLH?
No, who was it?
Melissa Joan Hart, another 3-named celebrity. But
what is that? Sarah Michelle Gellar, Jennifer Love Hewitt. That had to be
Freddie
a 90s
Prinze Jr.
thing.
Yeah, let's all use our middle names as well. But I thought about it and I was like, well, if they put Melissa Joan Hart, and I apologize to all the Gen Zers that aren't going to get this, but they could have called this Clarissa Knows It All, including What You Did Last Summer. That could have been the whole title, you know?
That would have been a really long title, albeit a funny one.
Yeah, well, this one's already pretty long.
It is pretty long. I will say, though, I feel like she wouldn't have been right for it. I just think very Sabrina the Teenage Witch of her, and she's inherently so wholesome. And Jennifer Love Hewitt's character is supposed to be kind of a nerdy, like, smart girl, but I don't know. They don't read the same to me.
Do smart girls usually wear blossom hats and carry around pink teddy bears? Is that something that smart girls do?
I mean, they did in the 90s. Yep. Okay. You know why? Because all girls did that in the 90s. So the smart ones and the dumb ones. Yeah, but she also was really well known for actually Ghost Whisperer. Do you remember that show? And I was thinking about this today. I was like, I feel like this show would never get made now. Like,
I remember it, but I didn't watch a single episode.
I saw it in passing. I definitely did not watch it sequentially. I just mean the concept. Like, I saw 1 or 2 episodes. They're very cheesy. They seem quite terrible. But the whole concept is that she literally talks to ghosts to like solve crimes. I was like, this is...
I feel like now there's a dozen shows like that.
But I feel like it wouldn't get... Are there really actively? Like, that's like Medium.
I feel like, I mean, aside from that one, I'm pretty sure there's been a handful of other shows that have to do with communing with the dead for the purpose of solving a crime. But did you ever see that Family Guy joke where they were making fun of that show?
No.
Because we're probably going to talk about this today. What was the cinematographer's name again that you said earlier?
Dennis Cannon.
Dennis Cannon. He knows what he's doing in this movie. We talked about This Is All Beautiful People.
Mm-hmm,
but in Family Guy, they had a joke where it cut to the ghost whisperer. And she's like, why do you ghosts keep coming to me? And she's wearing a low-cut shirt.
And she's wearing like a negligee.
Like, oh, we really were comfortable with you. But he's just staring at
her boobs.
Like, maybe that was the plot of the ghost whisperer.
Listen, like she is super stressed and sad in this movie, but her boobs are out. You know what I mean? The whole time. It's just, that's the Jennifer Love Hewitt effect. They don't put her in something and not use them. Put them to work, I guess.
Well, I saw an interview with her where she said this was, I'm struggling to not laugh when saying this was a breakout role in a physical sense for her, because she had so many I guess, childish roles prior to this, but she was a grown-ass woman. But,
Yeah.
she was becoming a woman physically, and this was the first movie where they had her actually show her body, and
Like,
that
show her
opened
off
up, for better
other
or
things.
worse, depending on your interpretation, that opened up a bunch of other opportunities for her.
Listen, if she appreciates it, then I'm
Yeah.
very happy for her. But yeah,
You,
it was
girl.
the move from then on, like
Yeah.
for sure. But also, Sarah Michelle Gellar is doing similar things in this as well. The fucking opening scene of Sarah Michelle Gellar is she's in a beauty pageant in a swimsuit. And,
But she's trying to be like Mother Teresa, so to her credit, she knows who Mother Teresa is. That's good.
It's such a beauty pageant vibe. It is just hilarious. Like the question, the wave, the swimsuit, the whole teeny town packed into this little auditorium.
The only radio host within like a 500-mile radius who gets to host it. He's like, so what are you gonna do if you win?
Oh yeah, we need that guy interviewing us. That seems great. Yeah, but she's done, as we know, similar time frame, right? She was doing Buffy. Buffy actually started the same year as this. I don't know which came first, but as far as release, but started the same year as this. She also did Cruel Intentions with Ryan Phillippe.
Yeah,
and then Scooby Doo with Freddie Prinze Jr. Yeah, it's all very incestuous in the 90s because then here comes Ryan Phillippe, Cruel Intentions as well, and then he did Crash, and then he's done a lot of B action movies. He did
one of the greatest action movies, MacGruber, with Will Forte, which is so fucking stupid, but that is a guilty pleasure, laugh out loud film for me. And Ryan Phillippe, to his credit, is playing along with the entire ridiculousness of it. So,
well, I'm sure this will shock you, but I have never seen that. So
I'm not going to put it on your recommendation list. I think you're going to be angrier than when I made you watch Dawn of the Dead. Speaking of which, just let's get this out of the way right now. Did you like this film better than Dawn of the Dead 2004? That's going to need to be a video clip because the listeners can't appreciate the face you just made where you almost had an aneurysm.
It really is hard, actually. I think I liked Dawn of the Dead better, actually, which feels shocking to me.
But it's, again, that's horror, right? Is the fun aspect, because Dawn of the Dead, it might not make a lot of sense, but the beats keep happening. There's constantly action. Yes. It's kind of funny. This one, again, just, ugh. I don't want to get into spoiler territory, but can we just say spoiler warning now?
I think we already established that we ruined it in the cold open. So,
so can we talk about that the first kill in a slasher movie doesn't officially happen until 38 minutes into the film?
Yeah, it's a little late for my taste, especially, again, thinking that he's trying to rejigger this to be a classic slasher flick, and you're like, when is it gonna happen? I'm bored. Right. And I will say, it's not the anticipation, it's I'm bored. If you dragged it out and it felt interesting, that would be different. I'm just bored. Yeah. So
I wonder if it's trying to do kind of like the original Halloween, because
I think it is.
One of her favorite
that's what
horror
it's
films.
trying.
I enjoy Halloween, but I also am just like, can we get to the part where people die? Like there's consequences, because it's a lot of stalking and suspense. And I think maybe that's what this is trying to do.
I think it's trying to do that, and I don't like that. I didn't like it in Halloween even, and I still think they do a better job of it in Halloween. At least it feels anticipatory, right? And versus this is, again, I'm just bored and I want it to be over. I just want some blood and guts already. But yeah, then we also have, we're getting super distracted. Sorry. Freddie Prinze Jr. was in She's All That and Scooby-Doo, and you said a funny comment about how he doesn't seem to have a lot going on upstairs in this movie, and I'm like, does he ever though? Like in any movie that he's in, and I'm not saying Freddie Prinze Jr. is stupid, I'm saying they're putting him in certain kind of roles.
Freddie Prinze Jr.'s characters are
his
stupid.
Characters are stupid.
They're
and
not
my
even
favorite
stupid. They're just sort of like dumb, like bleh.
Yeah. And I love that in She's All That, he got into Harvard and Dartmouth and Princeton and Stanford and all the things because he's supposed to be the smartest guy in the school. And you're like, I'm
this guy.
It's not reading for me. I'm not getting it. But
you would have preferred She's All That if they had cast Stephen Hawking in the role.
Yeah,
it's
obviously.
Him in high school wearing a backwards cap, dating what's her name?
But like
Rachel
a leather
Lee
jacket, because you gotta be hot. Only the cool guys and the hot guys are in leather jackets. But yeah, no.
To pile on, and I'm kind of critiquing myself here, but I need to add it because you said last week we need to keep a count. And it's time for a wrestling reference, Mackenzie.
Oh, there it is.
Freddie Prinze Jr. was a writer for WWE from 2006 to 2009. So was scripting, a wrestling show on TV. So I think that adds a little more to your theory.
That is awesome. And I also, listeners, guys, team, who I don't know who's keeping the count. I need you to get us an update in the comments when we post this reel because I'm not keeping count. It's you guys' job. I said that already. Also, we have a couple others on this that we'll blow through. None of these are as big, mostly because they don't actually make very long appearances, but
yeah, every other character has like 2 minutes of screen time.
Very minimal screen time,
Yeah.
yeah. And so one of them is Anne Heche, R.I.P. She is of Donnie Brasco and 6 Days and 7 Nights fame, as well as a bunch of random other shit. But what I remembered her from first was 6 Days and 7 Nights, and her character is so annoying in that. That's the main reason
I remembered her from dating Ellen DeGeneres.
Yes.
They might have been
most
the first
famous couple in the late
lesbian
90s,
couple that I was
early
friends
2000s.
with.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Friends, you homies with Ellen?
Well, through the sense that I saw them on the television and I was exposed. Like I was an Air Force brat, so like I was stuck on this military base, but yeah.
There you go. Well, she's famous for other things, but not anything super huge if you ask me. But she was fine. She plays an interesting character in this, I'll say that. But
she goes all in on it. I have no problem with her performance.
To the bit. Yeah. She's super
It's like creepy backwoods redneck chick. I got this.
Yeah,
you put her in a Kid Rock video.
Why
is that not a crossover at this point? That made
that is
sense.
Such a good point. Like
right?
The timing, that would have worked great, actually, and maybe been more interesting than this movie. But Bridget Wilson also comes in for this, and I didn't even look up her thing because I don't think it's that relevant. But the only thing I remember her for is The Wedding Planner.
I don't remember her from. I don't think I saw what that was. Jennifer Lopez, right?
Yeah, but she like plays she's not even in that very long. But anyway, she's more interesting in that than this. In this, she's just an asshole sister the whole time. But I was just like, I don't even like this character enough to do any research on this person. So
she's kind of a pain in the ass, but it's weird because I still don't feel like she deserves her character's fate. She's just kind of fodder. But I am a few years older than you. So for me, I remembered her as being in Billy Madison.
Oh, that's right.
Veronica Vaughn.
Yep.
And then Sonya Blade in the original Mortal Kombat movie. So again, like going way back to early 90s, I remember her from that.
It's funny. She has a very different look in this, but you're right. I know her. I saw Billy Madison way before this, obviously. So yeah, definitely what I would think of her, and so much more likable than this one.
Facts. And her name here is, you said Bridget Wilson. She is now Bridget Wilson Sampras because she fucking married Pete Sampras. 20-time, what are tennis tournaments called? You know, Mackenzie.
Opens.
World Opens Championships.
U.S. Open, Wimbledon titles. There's a bunch of their titles. He's won a lot of titles, men's titles. Yes.
But she's married to him. That's crazy. They're still together.
So she must not be as annoying as this character, is what we've learned. So, but we also have Muse Watson, whose character is pretty terrible, and I think probably plays the same person in everything that he does. He's in shit like NCIS, Prison Break.
Who's Muse Watson? Is he playing the actual killer here?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. The hook. I don't know his name actually.
Yeah, I think his name is cool. He seems lame, but not the person. Sorry, the role is lame. Johnny Galecki is from Big Bang Theory and Roseanne, and I think everyone probably just knows him from Big Bang Theory, to be honest.
Well, and Christmas Vacation, he played the young version of Russ in that. And another one that I wanted to call out, because this is it's not super obscure, but I haven't met too many people who've seen Suicide Kings. You ever seen that? It's Johnny Galecki. It's Sean Flannery, who was in Boondock Saints, as one of the brothers.
Oh, Christopher
I love a
Walken,
Sean Flannery moment. J. Moyer, but it's this pretty stacked cast, but it's just about them kidnapping this millionaire Christopher Walken character and trying to hold him for ransom. But it's kind of just this bottle movie where they are trying to negotiate, and he's a gangster and he's got guys coming to kill it. And he's not a gangster. He's a gangster. Christopher Walken is.
Oh, okay.
But Even in college, I was like, this is a guilty pleasure, but it's kind of a gangstery film, and a lot of people I knew loved it. I was shocked to see when I looked this up on IMDb that Suicide Kings has a higher rating than this does. Like, it's a
Okay.
6.9, which isn't bad, which isn't good, but it's also not bad.
That's not bad. This is bad. So that's why. Apparently that one's better and I wish we had watched that. My bad. No, I'm kidding. I actually think this was an interesting experience because I had a very different memory in my head of what this movie was like and I have been disabused of that notion. Very quick plot summary for those who don't
Can I
remember.
call out one other cast member? This is very
Oh,
important.
sure.
I suggest everyone go to IMDb and look up Dan Albright, who plays Sheriff in this.
Googling in real time. Dan
Sheriff.
Albright.
And you look at his roles, and every role he plays is sheriff, doctor, officer,
No.
judge, reporter, sheriff, doctor. Like, it's just he's at the end of
He's
the day,
very type. Oh my god, you're
this
right.
man,
This is
he is a
hilarious.
professional. He is a professional in the most literal sense of the term. So good for him.
Professional. Okay, this is hilarious. Police officer, doctor, chief, sheriff, grocer, shaking it up. Officer, doctor,
He wanted to see what it was like
grandfather.
working at minimum wage for a little while. You
Yeah,
know,
he had to
let me
shake it
get
up a
this
little.
practice down.
That's hilarious. Also that you found that. That
I
is
don't know why I decided to click that actor, but I was like, oh, let's see what he's in.
I know.
Yeah.
What a deep dive. All right. Well, in case you didn't already remember this movie, the plot is that four young friends bound by a tragic accident are reunited when they find themselves being stalked by a hook wielding maniac in their small seaside town. And that's it. That's a wrap, folks. Thanks so much. We're all done
See
here,
you next
right?
week.
Are we
We're
done?
we're doing another movie.
I feel like this is the one we've roasted the hardest in a long time, to
Already,
be
we're not
honest.
even, yeah.
We're
Now
not
we're gonna
even
get
into
to
it
the
yet.
actual plot.
But I will say, first and foremost, these are some basic fucking characters who are boring as shit. Like you said, completely one dimensional. Their character trait is this character trait. And also, the way they talk to each other doesn't hold up. So, out of the gate, I was so annoyed with the sexism and misogyny and the
Yeah.
the whole energy. And I was like, this has not aged well. And we are 30 seconds in, and I am over it. So it wasn't a great watch for me, for sure.
No, the characters feel very hollow. And I think other movies at the
Great
time,
way
I
to
think
say it.
it was a 90s sort of trope of having almost like taking the Breakfast Club and saying, let's have one of each of these archetypes, sort of. You have the jock and you have the cheerleader and you have the nerd and blah, blah, blah. But
Yeah.
in this, it's just not very enjoyable because it's one note characters, at least in Kevin
Yep.
Williamson's other movies like Scream and The Faculty, which we mentioned. The characters are fleshed out. They have
Yeah.
desires and wants and things that are driving them, as opposed to just being like, my name is Julie and I am scared of like everything and nervous all the time. That's her character.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you said it all very well. It's not even
Well,
worth
thank you.
much addition there. Hollow, one dimensional,
Yeah.
not interesting. It's like, what, if anything else, do you have to add to this? Even like Julie, when she's going home after this has all happened, her mom's trying to talk to her and she's like physically unable to speak. And you're like, are you serious? You can't even like carry a have you talked to nobody for a year? Get it together.
And it's not as much of a straw. I'm not going to say the acting in this is phenomenal, but it is
No.
not so much hinged on the performances as it is the script. They just don't have a lot of good dialogue to work with.
Yeah.
Every conversation, it just feels like the Barry character. She's like, well, be angry. Just yell this line angrily. And that's kind of all the direction he's being given.
I also feel like he starts at 100 though. And
Yeah.
that is a choice. You know what I mean? Like you could work your way. You can deliver a seething anger. You can deliver a quiet anger. You could work your way up to the ragey, yelly anger. He just is at 100 the whole time. He just starts from 100 and it's boring to watch. Ryan Phillippe is like kind of that actor. I love the movie Cruel Intentions, guilty pleasure, for example, for me. I think it's a great movie, but he's not the thing about it. The writing and the story and the whole vibe is better.
I explained the plot of Cruel Intentions because Janelle's never seen it. I gave her the 2-sentence summary. How would you explain Cruel Intentions in 2 sentences?
Oh man.
I'm putting you on the spot.
Well, I mean that it's an inappropriate
There.
relationship
Okay. Yes.
between step non-biological siblings that yields a really traumatic bet on an innocent third party.
You put
Uh,
it so much higher class than I did.
well,
I
it
don't
is
remember the
based off
exact word.
Dangerous Liaisons, which I feel like, people
Okay.
forget that. It is a little higher brow. It was a remake,
Okay,
so.
I actually had no idea about that. Yeah, Janelle was like, "What is that about?" And I was like, "Well, it's this stepbrother and stepsister, and the bet is that if he can deflower this girl at their school, then he gets to fuck his stepsister at the end of the year." That's the
I
plot of the
mean, that is
movie.
a very simple, to the
Yeah.
point plot and also respectable. I would just say that this is based off like a 1700s French novel. So it follows very closely and it is very sexual and all the things, but it is a little more highbrow. But yeah, that's the 2000s version for sure. For
You go,
sure.
France. You
You
go.
go, France. Good story. They gave us the Marquis de Sade. They got it down for sure.
But yeah, to what you were saying about, you critiqued the Barry character a little bit, and then
Oh,
to
he's
get to
so
Freddie
annoying.
Prinze Jr.'s Ray,
Ugh. Ugh.
he does. I mean, I'm not blaming it on the actor. The script, he just sounds brainless throughout this whole
He
thing.
sounds brainless and breathy.
I like
Brain.
how upset he gets when he's telling the urban legend story,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Yeah, that's just an urban legend." Nobody, and he's like, "It's true. I
It's true,
swear."
guys.
Like he gets
Guys,
really, he's like
urban
writing
legends
in
are
his
based
diary.
on a
Nobody
thing.
believed
Okay.
my story.
I know. He gets really emotional about it. And like his face too. And it's funny because this is a Freddie Prinze Jr. thing. He did this in She's All That too, where his emotional face is the same, like emotional stress
Mm-hmm.
face. And when he's being emphatic, he's very breathy. And so he does that here too. And you're like, take a breath, buddy. You're going to be fine. But no, yeah, he's got 3 brain cells to rub together in this movie for
Or
sure.
like the line where he's like, "He's after me too. I got a letter." Like,
I got a letter.
I
A
almost got run
letter.
over. She got her hair chopped off. She got a dead body in the trunk, and you got a
That was
letter.
the one time I agreed with Barry that I was like, excellent call out because yeah, you got correspondence. Great. We're super scared of the correspondence you received. Yeah. And I think also too, from the night that it happens and they have their little meltdowns, which also, by the way, like very frustrating and annoying to watch, but relatable. Like you have been
Right.
drinking and driving, being stupid and whatever. Like that situation in
It's
and of
one more
itself.
crime that you've admitted to on the podcast, by the way. But
Listen,
okay.
I haven't admitted to anything. I said it's relatable.
It's
Most
one of those
people.
Tuesdays where you're
Accidents
drinking and
happen. You know what I
driving.
mean? There's no speed bump
Jesus
anywhere that y'all
Christ,
need to worry
Mackenzie,
about.
weird. Oh, jeez.
But I'm just saying we can identify with that. What we can't identify with is the switch that flips for them of just he just doubles down on being an asshole. He just doubles down on being the worst. And then when this happens a year later, they all come back and they have to figure this out together. Ray's character is like, Julie, let's just get back together. And the whole time I'm like, really? He's like, what happened with us? What do you mean what happened with us? A murder happened with us.
Yeah.
And like,
then you went to 2 different places.
and then we went away from each other. That's what
Mhm.
happened to us. And also, can we just talk about how Ray does not sell the fisherman? Ray did not
No.
become a fisherman. You know what I mean?
He needs a little more sun, I think, in advance. He needs to maybe take a little of the product out of his hair. Maybe
he
put on
needs a
some
sunburn.
stubble.
He needs a
Yeah.
sunburn. He needs some scruff. He needs to not
Mhm.
look like he just came from the spa. Like
Yeah.
and then they show him like carrying the basket of fish one time to just prove that he's a fisherman. And it's like half full and his muscles are fine or whatever, but you're not like, oh, I'm buying it. He's so strong and he's such a rough and tumble fisherman. You're like, this is Freddie Prinze Jr.
It'd be funny if
It's
that's
not
like
working.
all the knowledge that Freddie Prinze Jr. has about fishermen is he's like, oh yeah, they carry buckets of fish from places. That's all he's ever learned about being a fisherman.
Yeah, that's all he learned, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, no, he was not selling it. But Ryan Phillippe was selling the asshole, I'll give him that. The way he talks to these girls, like the year later when they walk up to the house and he's like, what are you bitches doing? Basically,
You look like shit run
you
over
look
twice.
like shit got run over twice. Like, what
That could have been in The Sandlot a few weeks ago. That could have been one of the insults from The Sandlot. They do say shit.
Oh, they do. Mac, we need you to track the insults here from Barry. He's the worst. But yeah, he's a dick. Ray's not selling me on anything. Julie's just annoying and nonverbal all of a sudden.
Can we
And
talk about like Julie's innocence though, and how the sequence of events is they're on the beach and he says X% of long distance relationships ending in marriage or something, like, or high school sweethearts, blah blah blah. And she
oh my
says,
God, what a
state
crock
your
of shit.
source.
And
He points to his heart.
okay, but my
And
note is literally, is it his heart or his dick? Because the angle is weird. And I was like, I literally rewound it.
Either way, she ends up saying tonight's the night. So you go, Julie. You go.
Whatever it is worked, you know, I'll give
Yeah.
him that. But man, what a move. What a cheesy fucking move that was. But he's got moves, I guess. He's not a fisherman, but apparently he's got moves.
Yeah. And I'd love to touch on Helen's character as well. But
yeah, that was
honestly,
gonna be my
there's
last one.
not
Helen
a
is the
lot
worst.
to her.
She's not. And like her dream, oh my God, I have this note about them talking on the beach as well, where she's telling him their life plan, which is like, she's, by the way, said on stage a few moments ago at this pageant that she's going to be a serious actress in New York. But then she's talking on the beach about her guiding light contract for 2 years. Folks, this is a soap opera. Well. If y'all didn't know that, this is a soap opera. Okay. So she's going to be a soap star. He's going to be a player for either the Steelers or, if he has it his way, the Cowboys.
He's not big enough to be in the NFL.
He's not. Right? He's not.
Sorry to hurt your feelings.
Sorry, not sorry. It's facts. And then also she's going to allow him to impregnate her before he goes to rehab.
That's in the cards. It's good to just get that out on the table of like, hey, you're going to make mistakes and I love you. So it's okay.
This life plan is fucking out of control. I was like, you have planned in rehab? I have so many questions. But yeah, she's very also one-dimensional, but somehow very accepting of the challenges that her future husband might face and need to go to rehab. Like, wow.
Which is a bummer because Helen has one of the great horror chase scenes, I feel like, and her
she
death
does
is
have
like,
a good chase scene.
For not having much gore, her death is very brutal and heartbreaking, and that entire sequence is rough to watch, but the character just has not given us much to invest in up to that point.
She's just not likable, and I actually hate to use that phrase because we have such a problem of analyzing women in films and being like, they're not likable, and it's really annoying. I don't mean it that way. I just mean she is not fucking interesting at all. None of them are, but she's super not. And I guess the most interesting thing about her is that her sister is an asshole. And you just want to, at least for me, I was very preoccupied with like, why is this happening? Like, why are they like this to each other? They're a little too old for this, is what I'm saying. Like, my sister and I were dicks to each other growing up, but she's my best friend now. You know what I mean? Like, we've grown up. And this woman is a grown-ass woman treating her 18, 19-year-old sister terribly. Yeah. And that's the most interesting thing about her that is, by the way, never touched on at all. You just see her sister being verbally abusive to her and being a real dick, and you're not bought into her at all. But I agree with you. She has the best chase scene, and she has the best like overall tension building scenes because she's in the parade and she's like looking for the guy, and apparently everyone's wearing their slickers today, even though it's 1,000 degrees, by the way. And so she's stressed out seeing all these people in the crowd, and then she does see somebody who's clearly very visibly threatening her on the roof, and so you're like, okay, something's about to go down, get it. And then the Barry thing happens, and that scene pissed me off so bad because everyone just physically stops her. Like, she can't.
No, you're in the pageant. You can't leave. You have to judge the pageant. This is very important.
We're literally holding you hostage is the takeaway. I was just like, there are 12 people physically restraining her right now. What is happening? Yeah. But then I thought it was interesting, and I would love just to dig into the one or maybe only interesting thing about this movie is that Barry's up there getting murdered. Yeah. And then they go up there and he's not murdered. Well, he is, but he's not there. He's MIA. He's MIA. So I guess I wonder what you think, like, they're trying to imply happened there. Because I just felt like it was not very well thought out and was kind of janky of, like, where did he go? There would be physical marks somewhere. Yeah. There would be blood. Even if he's not there and he got away quickly, there would be some kind of evidence of a struggle. And there's just fucking nothing, like he's vanished magically. And obviously he has not. So I don't know. What is that supposed to be?
Well, before I get to that, I wanted to point out that I don't know if it's his last words, but some of his last words are threatening the killer, that if he shows up, he'll pound his
He'll
ass.
pound his
And
ass.
I'm like, Barry, I don't think
So
that's
scary,
coming
Barry.
out the way you think it is. But when he's up there,
Maybe that's what happened. Maybe that's why there's no blood. You know what I mean? That could be it.
they like run away together because spoiler, the killer's in the sequel. So like,
It's
yeah.
true, you know?
But I think that it's dumb the way that they shot it because they have the blood dripping off on the railing. You see a shot of blood dripping there. So he was carried out bleeding. But with how many times he's struck with the hook, there should have
there'd be
been blood on the
splatter.
ground. Yeah,
Splatter.
if he's getting it all over the banister, there should be signs of, like you said, a struggle or blood.
I feel like I missed the banister. Maybe I was taking notes or something.
It's like the last shot before they cut away from that scene just to show, like,
but
yes,
either way, then it's
here.
there. Then somebody saw it. Then the sheriff, like, why is the sheriff not believing her? You know, all that kind of nonsense and whatever. It's just, there's lots of holes. That's why this movie sucks. There's so many holes and stupid things like that. And then, of course, she's stuck in the back of the fucking cruiser and can't get out. And then idiot sheriff is like, oh, I have to go down this dark alley, and oh, I have to help this strange man in the dark with no.
It's a small town. It's a small town. Backup. I get that.
But you have somebody in your car. Like, I'm pretty sure that's against some kind of protocol. I don't know. Anyway, it's just one stupid thing after the other. But then she breaks out, and that is cool that she breaks out because honestly, I do think you expect her to not. You know, like,
because she's been so helpless throughout the course of the film. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the one shakeup that I'm like, okay, well, at least she ran. She cracked open the window. Also, LOL at movie glass. It's always my favorite thing. Just crumbles. No shards. You're fine. This is safety glass, guys. She's fine. Oh, in her short dress too, where you're like, you would be cut for Jesus on that.
I was more impressed. I wrote down, can we bring back when we all used to sleep in just silk long sleeve button down shirts? Can we bring that back?
the nice pajamas in movies, just what a thing. You're like, okay, I've never owned a pair of those, but that sounds lovely. Sounds very lovely. But I also, speaking on that point, she is in her pajamas and the crown situation in the bedroom. She kept the crown. You know what I mean? Like, you kept the crown from the murder night. You were like, you know what souvenir I really want on my shelf to look at every day is this murder crown.
Look, so, Mackenzie, you can kill as many people as you want. It doesn't take away the fact that you're the most beautiful girl in town and you answered the questions about Mother Teresa the best. So,
and you're going to be a serious actress. So,
on Guiding Light.
Guiding Light. But she keeps this, and then she wakes up with it on, and her hair is cut. You know, he's obviously fucking with her or whatever. That's kind of cool that he messed with her and creeped her out in the middle of the night. But she also screams bloody murder, like she was actually stabbed. And I'm like, your hair was cut. Like, it got a trim. Like, it's not ultimately the split ends are probably very thankful for the situation.
My theory, I can't speak to the split ends. My hair's never long enough for that. But my theory is that the director took that term scream queens of what he thought the females in horror movies should be, because Janelle said at the beginning, when they see the original body on the street that they hit with the car, JLH screams bloody murder. Sarah Michelle Gellar screams bloody murder. Here, they're not the right moments to scream in that way, but I will say they were very good screams. So if you're trying to do the whole scream queen thing,
they were good screamers. But every time I hear people scream like that, and I guess it's like a scream queen movie thing, I guess it makes sense. But I'm like, I'm physically incapable of screaming this way. Like, I don't understand how people do it. And you hear it in multiple movies. And yeah, these women are very good at it. And I'm just like, how does the decibel, the pitch, wow, it's aggressive and it hurts. It hurts to listen to. But yeah, they do a good job of the scream queen vibe. So I guess that's what he was committed to. Her sister does it later as well.
It's weird. Like, all the three, the most, I guess, main female, I guess Anne Heche is up there too, but she doesn't really get that type of scene. But all the three females in this do have their, like, do your best horror movie scream. We need to get it on camera for this film. But I wanted to backtrack a little bit to when she's in the cruiser, because even when I saw this when I was a teenager, I had these sort of plot holes in the back of my mind. Now, I will say this. Did a little bit of research, and by research I meant that I went to the IMDb trivia, but it kind of fills in a couple. But again, it's making the viewer work so fucking hard to fill these gaps, because two plot holes. Number one, referring to when she's in the cruiser. a lot of people complain about the weird Max's body with all the crabs being in Julie's trunk.
Yeah.
And then when they come back, everything's gone. Like nothing was there to begin with.
Right.
I read that the truck that passes by and honks its horn at Julie as she's almost walking out into the street in that scene is the same truck that's parked next to the cruiser when the cop gets out and the murderer is there. So presumably it's the same guy driving. So he's there. I still
Yeah.
think it's fucking stupid because there's going to be water, there's going to be the smell
There's
of
going to be
salt and death,
debris. Like, it
all this
doesn't
other
work
stuff.
at all.
So
Yeah.
again, making us do a little bit too much work, even if the director wanted it to kind of make sense. And then the other one that I hear asked a lot, which I also thought this watch through, was why does he kill Max? Because Max,
thank God. I'm so glad you brought that up. I've been waiting
wasn't
to talk
in the
about that.
car.
No, he wasn't in the car. It was unnecessarily added. And actually, it was added in reshoots. And I think that's part of why it doesn't fit, because it's not in the original story. It was reshot and added in after the fact because supposedly they felt like the killer didn't actually deem a credible threat to these people, and that
Well, he
they
never
would
fucking kills anybody.
well, they're like, he's not killing anybody, so he has to kill somebody so that they are afraid of him. And I don't know. I don't think that was necessary. I mean, I don't think I think it is a red herring, and it makes you wonder.
That's
like,
what I
is
wrote
the
down
deal?
was why did you kill off your only red herring 38 minutes into the movie?
Yes.
Because at this point we didn't have anybody else who we were really suspicious of, aside from the main four who we don't think probably did it. And I thought that was strange to like, why didn't you let him stick around for a little longer? And it does make sense, like you said, maybe they're trying to not just make the killer a threat, but liven up the movie a little bit, because the next kill after that doesn't happen until like an hour and 10 minutes. You're waiting another 35 minutes for the next kill.
But, and also, I don't think any of the kills are that satisfying because you don't actually see them. And Max's is one of the more satisfying ones because it's graphic and it's bloody, and you see him like drag. I mean, I do like that shot, actually. I will say
over the ice.
Over the ice shot, or they like pull him over in the blood and on that. Yeah, that's a cool shot. But the rest are not very interesting. You know, the Barry thing is all shadows, and the Helen thing is in the alley, and she's almost away, and that's the only interesting thing about it, is that she's been the most resourceful so far, and unexpectedly so. But then she's in the alley and it's behind tires and whatever, and you don't actually see it. So like, you don't see any real bloody confrontations other than that one, which is the guy who wasn't there in the fucking first place.
That makes a lot of sense, and I think it ties into what you said earlier, because in the novel for this, no one dies. It's not a super great. I think it's meant more to be a young adult mystery novel. And the author of this was pretty staunch on, I don't want this to be a super bloody slasher film. That's not what I want my art to be interpreted as. So I would imagine they made it the way she kind of wanted it. And at the end, they were like, if we want people to stick around for 45 minutes of this, we need to give them, the horror fans, something. So that makes sense with why she didn't want a ton of gore in there, and they sort of added that. But the plot hole that I'm talking about, and I mean, it's not a super, but why did he kill Max? And I had read this of, well, he overheard the fight that Max and Barry were having. And Max says, I'm going to go to the cops because Barry assaulted him. So the logic is, he wasn't going to kill Max, but if the cops get involved and start interviewing them about that night, his whole thing falls apart.
His vengeance.
I am not defending this movie because it is making you do a lot of fucking legwork to get to that conclusion, but I think that's the way the writers meant it.
And that's so in passing, and so like, not, you wouldn't pay attention to that at all. Because Max is such an unimportant character at this point. Like, you're not really paying attention to what he's doing that closely. And it's very much presented as like Barry's going off on him for no reason. So like, why would you pay that much attention to that, even that whole scene?
Max is only in 3 scenes, and he just becomes a bigger douche when he's offering her the drink. I know he's kind of creepy, like, hey Julie, let's hang out, it's the last night. Like, creepy, okay, fine. But then when he sees them on the street, he's turned total asshole. And is being super suspicious, and then in the future he's an even bigger dick. So it's just, Max is in 3 or 4 scenes, and he just changes every scene throughout the film.
Yeah, he just gets worse for sure. And I mean, I think like, just in the interest of wrapping this up because who wants to keep talking about this movie? But essentially what happens is like they get to the end-ish, and Julie suspects Ray after everything, it's down to a couple of people. So there's only so many suspects left anyway. And she mistakenly blames him in this because of the boat name, the Billy Blue boat name. She freaks out, she runs away, and this unknown fisherman maybe becomes her savior, right? This happens to be their unknown fisherman. Another thing I think is fucking stupid. And then she goes and jumps on his boat. And you're like, really? Have we learned nothing?
That's the safe place to go, is on the boat of a stranger. That's where you want to be.
Right. And also chain link is climbable. I have so many complaints about this. Anyway. Yeah. And so she gets on this boat, and it turns out to be Vengeance Guy, who is Susie's father and has been like conducting his vengeance. But the irony of all ironies for me is that this guy murdered the guy who is responsible for his daughter's death, and then got the most instant karma of his life by getting hit by a few cars of kids who did not intentionally kill him, but did in fact hit him. And then he's pissed at them for accidentally hitting him and dumping his body when he had just been doing the murdering. And then he comes out and is like, you know what I'm going to do? Some more fucking murder. And I'm like, what am I watching?
Yeah, I mean, he has the same bloodlust that we talked about with Barry. Barry gets a taste of it and just wants more. So I think it tracks with the logic of this film. Yeah, he's just I killed one guy, now I want to kill again. I actually, going back and watching this compared to a Scream or a Faculty or one of those sort of mystery slashers of the late 90s, early aughts, where you're trying to figure out who done it, is all of those involve a twist at the end. And this one, I think that the coolest twist is that it's literally the guy they hit. I think that's the coolest thing about this movie, is you're looking everywhere else except the most obvious place.
Yes. And I will also say, I think it's interesting that they have assumed that it's this other person, that it's not. I don't know about you, but I was just very like, well, it's not him. You think it's him, but it's obviously not him. That's not the guy you killed, whatever.
Which and even though he opens his eyes you see he's still alive when they dump his body. But even as a teenager, I was like, no, it can't be him. It can't be the guy that's still alive in the water. Yeah. I wrote it off.
Yeah. And I think the thing too is it's a twist that it's the guy. But once you realize it's this person, they just keep justifying it. They're like, well, we didn't actually murder him. We didn't actually murder him. And I'm like, bitch, you just murdered him. Like you actually did it again. The guy you said you murdered, but then you were relieved that you didn't murder. You did in fact just slice off his hand, and in theory also murder again. And I realize that that's not what happened, but like they're relieved that they didn't murder someone.
I was going to say, do you think you can get prosecuted for that? Like, for covering up a murder that wasn't a murder? Could you still get in trouble for that legally? Is that a crime?
I think it's hard. I think it'd be hard pressed to prove it.
It's like, I thought I killed somebody, I covered it up, but it turns out they're alive, so I'm in the clear.
Then they sliced his hand off and threw him overboard. So you still did some shit. And yeah, this was self-defense. I'm not saying that, but they're all super relieved that they didn't do a murder that they then did. You know what I'm saying?
But again, spoiler, he's in the sequel.
I know, but like they think they did a murder again. This is what I'm struggling with. This is so dumb.
Entire plot it's all dumb. Is that if you kill one person, you want to kill again, and it just goes to show when Julie and Ray cut off this guy's hand and throw him in and like, swim, motherfucker, with one hand.
Wish you the best, bitch. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, in case you couldn't tell, we hate this movie. So, what's your rating?
No. You're not going to get out of this easy.
I just want to be so done with this.
I know, but I am actually having fun critiquing the shit out of this film.
Hopefully the people are also having fun.
I wanted to say, I do really like the last sequence on the boat, as illogical as it is for them to get there. I think that's a cool set piece. I think the stuff with Ray's character getting thrown off, but holding onto the net, coming back on board, her down in the ice, picking through, and there's dead bodies. I think that last sequence is pretty damn cool, as silly as it was for us to get there, you know?
I mean, I think that like the rigging stuff is cool, you know, being on the boat and having to defend yourself in this rigging situation. I was really preoccupied by the fake ice. I was very like, this ice looks really bad and I'm really bored.
Is it really fake ice?
I have no idea. It looked very fake to me. Huh. I think it was fake. It looked very fake to me. It was very shiny and like uniform in size. Anyway, whatever. I didn't think it was great. But there were like a few distracting things is all I'm saying. But then like you see Barry's body and you see Helen's body in there.
Mm-hmm.
And both of those are like really decomposed for the state of things. I'm like, they're very gray. They're
Decomposed is one way to put it. Another way to put it is they're really bad, like wax figurines of that
they're really
actor.
bad wax figurines. Yeah, they're really badly done. And you're
For
like,
people that died a couple hours ago.
Yeah, I'm like, this dude died 45 minutes ago. Like, what? He does not look this bad yet. This is kind of ridiculous. But
which, like, speaking of people dying or not dying, why does the killer not kill Barry after he runs him over and has him laid out on the ground? Why does that kill not happen early in the film?
I think he just wants to draw it out with Barry because he's such a douchebag.
Okay.
You know, I also think Barry's yelling at him when he does that. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. Bitch, yes, you did.
Well, that's
Like-
what I thought. It was that the killer was like, you know what? He's a good kid. Let's give him another chance. And then as soon
no,
as
I
he's
don't
in the
think it was
hospital,
that.
Barry's like, oh, he's fucking with his blood. And he was like, okay, never mind. I am going to kill him.
I totally think he's just fucking with him because he's just like, he is such a super douche. And you got to keep in mind, remember, like, this guy wasn't actually dead. He was in and out of consciousness while these kids are talking about hiding his body. You know, he hears how shitty Barry is the whole time. I think Barry is the ringleader, you know what I mean, in that sense. And he's,
okay, that makes sense.
So I think he's like, how much can I torture this fucking douche?
I think you're right with that. Okay, I'm only gonna have 2 more talking points, and then I'll let you get out of here because I know you're having a great time this episode. But
I mean, it is fun to talk shit about this show. I think I will agree with that for sure. But it is real bad. Anyway, continue.
One quick call out is that there's a jump scare when they're visiting Missy Egan, when they're visiting her, where she jumps into nobody greets somebody like that at a car window. First of all, they're hey, like jump into frame of that window. But the second thing is I was like, that actually got me to jump because at that point in the movie, I'm so fucking bored and zoned out and I'm kind of like glancing at my phone. And then when that happens, it is a pretty decent jump scare.
I think I was numb because I did not, in fact, react. I was like, okay.
You were like, yeah, it's like when people get tortured and you just hit a point where nothing hurts anymore.
Nothing hurts anymore. I'm fine. It's fine. But I did think it was silly that she was like, the way she knocked on the window and was like, hey, like she was aggressive, like she was about to pick a fight. And then was like,
yeah,
you forgot your cigarettes. And you're like,
that's a
really?
very intentional director thing of, hey, we want to make people jump. So when you approach this window, I want you to leap into frame and scream as loud as you can.
Yeah, I want you to seem like you're losing your mind, but also you're
Right.
just going to give her the cigarettes. Don't worry.
Exactly. There's one other thing that I want to talk about, and that is the what are you waiting for scene. Did you read anything fun about that? Because I did.
Are you talking about the Jennifer Love Hewitt where she's like, what are
Yes.
you waiting for?
Yes.
Screaming into the ether?
Yes.
I didn't read anything about it, but I was like, well, that's the most interesting thing she's done.
So, agreed. That scene, and I have no idea. I tried going down a rabbit hole. In an interview in 2021, Jennifer Love Hewitt came out and said that that scene was directed by a kid who had won a contest to write a scene in a horror, to direct a scene. And this kid just said, oh, I think it'd be cool if she's like, you know, looking around and going, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? And that was his scene. Just that one.
Why didn't we hire this fucking kid?
I know, to film the whole thing. Like that was a great scene.
Yeah. The angle is lovely. Like it's a cool shot. I mean, that is the most interesting thing that has happened to Julie James in this movie. Like what the fuck?
110% agree. It's so strange to me because how is there not more? Because this is straight from Jennifer Love Hewitt's mouth, and granted, it's 1997, so the internet, like, this was not a contest that is published somewhere on the internet. So
he wrote in to do this. You know what I mean?
Still nothing, but I'm like, where is this? Was this in a Cinnamon Toast Crunch box? And like,
what I want to know is where is this kid now? Because he shows promise, is what I'm saying. Like that kid was gonna become a decent director. What's he done since? I want to watch that.
Yeah, that's a great. You know who that kid is now?
Who?
Kamala Harris. So there you go. It's another fun fact for We Drink and We Watch Things.
Okay, wait, but a legit fun fact, kind of while we're here, not really, but kind of. Jennifer Love Hewitt makes greeting cards now.
Really? She has like her own brand, or she just writes them?
She like has her own little greeting card brand. I did a little deep dive on her socials last night because I was like, what is this bitch up to? And I can tell you it's 2 things: Hallmark movies and greeting cards.
Do you know what the greeting card company is called in case we want to buy them for
I
Valentine's Day
feel
next year?
like we've talked so much shit about them that we shouldn't mention it, or about her that we shouldn't mention it. But no, I don't remember. She sells through this one particular company. It's like she doesn't own the place that you buy it, but she does the greeting cards themselves. So
Okay.
it was
Okay.
interesting.
Well,
It was
good for
interesting.
her. I mean, it's in her name, right? She was destined for this. So, the last thing I want to say is, what do you think of that sort of ending where we think we're getting a happy ending? I also want to point out, there's that not red herring, but that throw off sorority letter of the invitation where she thinks she's getting another letter from the killer. I think
Mhm.
the biggest thing this proves is that fisherman murderer had impeccable handwriting, very similar to a sorority sister.
See, okay, being a handwriting nut and freak, like fun fact, I have very lovely handwriting. I can say
Okay.
that.
So you weren't impressed.
I was not impressed, but I
You were
have
Shania Twaining, like, that don't impress me much.
that don't impress me much, 100%. But no, I have very nice handwriting. I can do like calligraphy and stuff like that. But also just being a girl with girl handwriting, that is not girl handwriting. Like the Julie James on the
Mhm.
envelope, like that's not girl handwriting. And I don't know how to quantify that for you, but it's not. And so
Try.
like
Try
a
and quantify girl handwriting for me.
a sorority invite does not look like that, is
Okay.
what I'm saying. Like it doesn't. It's cursive-y, it's calligraphy-y, it's got colors. It's not fucking black and white with block letters. That is architect, serial killer, dude handwriting.
So
100%.
you think that the killer wrote a fake sorority party invitation to Julie just to give her something to be like, "Oh no,
No,
I'm
0%. I
okay."
think it's a plot hole, but I
Oh,
also think it's like a really bad one because that is not written by a girl, is what I'm saying.
I'm
Like, get
choosing to believe the first version where he writes out a beautiful invitation just to fuck with
He's like, you
her.
know what you're invited to? The sorority party that you will never go to because murder.
Yeah, it's the same reason he didn't kill Barry the first time. So that's, I think, the last thing I wanted to touch on. Also, the fact that she's apparently super happy and healed, this
Oh my god.
following
She has
summer.
that switch has flipped again and
Yeah,
she's back to her beautiful normal self because they didn't commit murder. That, by the way, they think they actually did. Let's not whatever get in the weeds with that. But now Ray and her happily ever after. So
she
great.
was much more upset about a stranger dying than she was about two or three of her friends dying.
Oh, for
That's
sure.
what stuck with me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right,
Mm-hmm.
Mackenzie, let's rate this shit.
Okay, let's rate this shit. You tell me. I feel strongly about this one. So
Yeah, this one is, when I was a teenager, I loved it, but I think it was a product of it being beautiful people and actors and actresses who I liked. But then when you get into it, this is just a mess and it is slow and it is not fun, is the biggest problem. I'll go on record and
it's slow.
say, if you've seen this and you didn't like it, but you haven't seen the sequel is more fun. It's still just as dumb, but it is a more enjoyable watch with,
Really?
the remaining cast are still in it, so it's not like a super downgrade. But I think the sequel is a objectively more fun horror movie.
Hmm.
So with this one, like I said, I think the cinematography, there's some good shots in here. I think the soundtrack is dumb 90s fun. But there's not a lot of redeeming qualities. I'll still give it like a 4.5 because it's watchable, but not by much.
Yeah, I think I was gonna go like a 4, maybe a 4.5 is kind
Yeah.
of my healthy benchmark there. The only thing that makes me reconsider that is like the ratings are a little bit higher than that. I don't know,
Yeah.
but I was miserable the whole time. I was like, I'm so bored. I'm so over this. And it's funny you say that about the sequel because I was like, who would ever watch the sequel
I
after
did.
this? Lamar would. That's you. Because I didn't buy it. I was like, this is not going to be
Well,
interesting.
you
This is
get
not gonna... But did you watch the sequel when it came out? Is that what you're
I
saying?
didn't see it in theaters, but I saw it as soon it was I forget if it was DVD at that point or what, but once it came out on video, I went and I rented it. Yeah.
I mean, it was literally the next year. Like that is a very
Oh.
quick sequel. But now I kind of want to watch it because it's got Brandy and Mekhi Phifer in it.
And
So
Jack Black, who's been in the news recently. So if you have
what? I didn't
yeah,
know he was in it.
you got a beef with
Oh,
Jack Black, go watch I Know What You Did.
I
I
don't
still
have
know
a
what she
beef
did
with him.
last
It
summer.
wasn't him, okay? Let's not get into all that. He didn't say it. Jeez
Facts.
Louise. Okay.
Now, I
Anyway,
want to say one more thing as we get out of here because I started this episode with a dedication to my sister. I also want to dedicate this episode to my buddies on the Dead and Lovely podcast who have been doing this for about 7 years, and they are wrapping up this month. I think they only have 2 episodes left. It's primarily horror movies, so they're discussing that. But I just wanted to shout out to them because I think without them, I don't know that I ever would have even thought to do a podcast. Like, they really got me into it, and it was a genre that I really love, and hearing people discuss it sort of showed me the potential that was out there. So I wanted to shout them out this episode too.
Well, shout out to them, but also I asked you to do a podcast. It wasn't them, it
But
was
I
me.
hadn't even thought about doing or even
Okay.
doing my own pod. You and I came to each other with our own ideas, and we sort of merged them into one. You were like, I like movies, and I was like, I like alcohol. And then we did a podcast out of it.
I love that the thing you brought to the table was alcohol. So
Yeah.
that's my favorite part of that. Well, shout out to them. I do follow them. I think they're very cool. So you guys are awesome. And maybe we should have them on. I don't know. Sidebar. But I will say we are super done with this one. Let us know what you thought, because I'm super curious if anybody actually enjoyed this rant of us just raging against I Know What You Did Last Summer. But thanks for joining. Come back next week where we're going to kick off Blockbuster month. So for the month of August, we will be
movies you can
on
rent from the one existing Blockbuster.
the last Blockbuster, which if you don't follow them on Twitter, it's really fascinating. But yeah, blockbusters, like summer blockbusters, summer hits, stuff you've probably seen or
From
are about
this
to
year.
see
From
this year.
2024. Yeah, new releases.
And what are we starting with? Fall Guy?
I think we're starting with Fall Guy, and I
Yep.
know we plan to cover maybe Inside Out 2 is a big one that people have been requesting, and
Twisters, which I just saw last night.
and
Good
obviously Deadpool and Wolverine, because
Yep.
that I think might be the highest grossing film this year. We'll see.
I will just say I think y'all should see all of them, because it'll make this a more enjoyable experience for you to listen. But I saw both Twisters and Fall Guy already. I haven't seen the other 2 yet, and those are both very enjoyable, and you should absolutely watch them. So
Yeah,
that'll be
definitely.
a fun
I mean, you guys watch the movies. We give you the heads up of what's coming. So watch the films and then make the drinks. If we put the recipe out there, sit back, relax, stay up all night with your baby, listen to the podcast. Don't forget to follow us on our socials at We Drink and We Watch Things. You can always email us at wedrinkandwewatchthingspod@gmail.com. But yeah, follow us on our socials, interact with our stuff, share us with your friends, give us a review. Mackenzie demands it be 5 stars.
4 or 5. I'll allow a 4.
4 is acceptable. Like, okay, they
4 is
could
acceptable.
improve, but it's damn near perfect. Is what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
I will allow feedback that is constructive, but if you go 3 and under, you're just being a dick. So I don't think it's rude. But yes, totally. Please follow us on the socials. I promise not to come for you. And for now, go have a drink and watch a thing. Cheers.
Cheers.